This is November 11th, 2024 with the boy Q and the girl Roobs. Yeah. Just had good time or melancholic time moving through insight in the Club Kingdom world today. So just finishing with a little reflection on who we learned insight to be today and what we learned about ourselves being in conversation with insight. Did you want to start us off?
I can. Oh, I thought it was more like an interview, and like you would ask me. No. Any thoughts? Okay, what did I
just asked. Yeah, you said you thought I would ask you a question, and then I said, "Any thoughts?" That's a question.
I have some insights for you. So, I think today in revisiting some of the phrase material, and then also rereading kind of the profile, I think from what I recall, like our last rehearsal way back when, like January. There's this really, it was only in January.
January 2024. It was almost a year ago.
Yeah. There was this like saginess, like elusive, not elusive, but like mysterious fog machine, mystic vibe of insight in this like cerebral, galactic, you kept using today.
Yeah.
Space. So they're very floaty and very like constantly, you said, making space in this kind of like smoke. It felt like smoky, very smoky today. And that like making, and even when you were talking about the boosters, yeah, it felt kind of also like a steam, like a kettle, kind of like,
yeah.
That was an image that was coming up, but
that's dope.
There was something around, yeah, like the inflating, deflating, like that kind of, and there was something a lot more like self-interested that insight was feeling today in terms of like holding space, but like around themselves, where I felt like, I don't know, I had more of an understanding of it being, or insight as I first, and maybe this is because we're getting deeper, but as I was first perceiving it, felt like like going through. And I think I felt that a little bit more than in relation to you once we started doing the exercise where you were shifting and it was like
slicing and dicing.
Yeah, slicing.
Yeah.
And so that could have also, and I wasn't very effective in that, and so that could have also been my approach in like being self-interested with insight. And so that could just be a read on how I'm approaching it, but or how I was approaching it today, because I think in the subtleties that we were finding too, in the like there was some isolations. It felt like insight was a lot more like there's so much more going on molecularly, or like it's this space as opposed to this space.
Yeah, it feels very nanotechnology type of like. Insight does give me very like
system,
metallic, like what you said, like fractal, like kind of like alien-esque. What you said, Rayquaza, Pokemon, but like what, even like the dragon, like the scales, like kind of scaly.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I felt like I was feeling that side of insight more this time than the there's another Pokemon you have that has more smoky
it's the
magic
moon.
mist around them.
I forget
They
her name,
had the
but
mist around them.
yeah.
And then I think with reading the profile again, there was something that felt, I was like, oh, insight is way more on the ground than I thought they were. And I think something kind of like around what we were talking about yesterday with the alien. He was like, the audience wants this, or like, what makes a good story? Or I don't know what he was saying, but like,
what are you talking about?
He wrote the paper with like, it was like what an audience wants or something, or like making the
sex and
the drama, romance. Check.
Yeah.
And so there's
talking about Alvin Ailey's at the Whitney.
So there was something around that when reading Insight's profile that energy was coming up to, like, I know what you want, I know what you need kind of vibe, like an insight on a person. That was just making me think there's something around their self-interest and like, I know what you want and what you need, and that confidence. And so curious how that manifests in relation to other characters, if it's like they're kind of not maybe like mocking, or like they know some of the other movements of the characters, but then that character goes rogue and they're like, oh shit, wait, I didn't, know, like there's like something around like, I already know what you're gonna say, like this is what I do, like exactly. I know what you need, you're gonna like kind of the all-knowing like host.
Yes.
Like, I know what makes people comfortable, I know how we think, like. And so there was something around when reading it that I was like, oh, it was hard for me to find both of those today, but I could see the
both
complexity, the like space galactic and the like
yes,
or like the Tetrising of like reading somebody, or like putting someone together, or like
there
putting
is
an
that
idea
dichotomy
together.
There is that dichotomy.
I don't know if that's clear, but
of like it's very like macro visionary, which is very much what we were talking about within the January rehearsals. It's like the look through the mirror. I'll look through the mirror, I'll look through the window, but I won't look at the mirror. And so we were very much in like that, like constantly seeing out. And I think today I was learning more about the seeing through. Like seeing the out through the seeing through. And I do think that is the light self of Insight, that they're willing to take the time and they have so much wisdom that they have so much wisdom in the seeing. They've seen so much, and they're also interested to see you specifically. The shadow side of that is the assumptions, even like what we were talking about of like, don't assume that I know for the mirroring exercise. Don't assume that I know what place you're going to go to next.
Or don't anticipate
moving before I come to you. I think Insight, that's more shadow self of Insight. Like they, as you said, they think they know because they know so much. And it's a similar thing as knowledge. Knowledge deals with that too, but knowledge deals with it in regards to information about the world.
Okay.
What's going on in current events and facts and stuff like that. But Insight is about people. I know what's going on with like you. Psyche. Yeah. So when it comes to other characters, what's interesting is like who do you think you are? You don't know me as much as you think you do, especially because a lot of that's going to be in busyness. Like they're so busy that they're not having those personal relationships. So why are you trying to read me when you haven't even actually spent that time with me? That can get into Insight's shadow side for sure. But yeah, I'm glad that we're holding both of those viewpoints of seeing the macro and also seeing through. And I think that thing that we were talking about with the intention of like the wonderment that I was reading from you in the seeing the macro, seeing the galaxy, it's like, no, I belong here. Like, I've seen this before. It's galactic, it's wide, it's so beyond, and I'm home.
Familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is not a new space.
Right. Right.
Yeah, because they don't really wander, I suppose. Do they wonder and wander? But like, I feel like there's always even in the zhizhing and the shaping and the holding, it's like, it's not like I'm like, ooh, and I think that's what I was feeling at first that's what I was accessing at first. But I don't know if that's necessary. Like, I don't know, there's something that's like, but I don't know. Maybe insight.
I feel like if there's a wonderment, it's a wonderment to come to an answer. Like, I feel like you personally, you enjoy the wonderment for wonderment's sake. And I feel like insight is not that. I feel like insight is wonderment in order to find a result. Yeah.
And yeah, okay, I feel that. Yeah, there's just a different knowing. Because I feel like insight would like say things in riddles and try to like, I don't know, they would know, like try to feed answers out of people, but
well, I still think that is, I don't feel like what you just said is a wonderment for like, oh my gosh, like, oh, it's so wonderful. Like,
no.
Oh, I wonder. Like, it feels like insight's trying to get something out of you, which is very specific still. Riddles, like, I think about the Riddler. Like,
yeah.
The Riddler's point is to make you wonder.
Exactly.
Not because he's wondering
That's
so
what
much.
I'm saying. Yeah. So who's ever in relation with insight is doing the wandering, not necessarily insight.
Right. I think insight would be thinking that they're the ones who are setting the pathway for you to wonder to get to the result that they've already figured out.
Yeah, I think when I was reading, there was also something I was curious about in terms of like other-centered is with the people too, and I think you did make the distinction of like, but insight is like, I kind of already have an idea. Other-centered is very much like, tell me what you like, I'm here for you. On the receiving end as opposed to the giving.
Right.
No, not opposed, but you know what I mean.
Say it again though, because I don't know.
I think like in terms of other-centered and insight, other-centered from what I'm understanding is just very generous and like comes to people to receive and is giving in their being, you know, like has capacity for people to come to them, I suppose. Whereas there's a interest in people with insight for the sake of, I think, the grander scheme of things, and also to gain more insight. I don't know if it's necessarily coming from a place of where other-centered is just rooted in a care for how everyone is doing.
Yeah, like for one, I want to be clear that we're like, I'm speaking from both of their light selves right now, and like other-centered is so selfless because they're tapped in to being seen and being loved. Self-love, spiritual love, whatnot. They're tapped into being loved. They know they're loved, and so they do the work so that they can pour from an overflowing cup. Insight is more seeing the tree, so other-centered is very personal in that way, servicing each person's needs. Insight is more about, I know what you need to do. I know what you're moving through. I know what you need to do to stop moving through that. And a lot of times she's right. A lot of times she totally she gets it.
Yeah.
But insight, for me, insight is so busy doing what she's doing for the club, or doing what he's doing for the club, doing what they're doing for the club, that they have taken on more of like a macro role. So they don't see the people individually. They see the group as a whole and what the group needs to do. But they don't have the capacity. They're not doing what they need to do in order to have the capacity to see people individually. And so people are telling me, Insight's telling me what to do, but I don't feel like Insight cares about who I am. Insight feels like they know what I'm already going through, so they don't even need to take the time to know who I am. Other-centered is just like, I don't know, but I'm here with you. What can I do to serve? Like, what can I do to help?
Yeah. But I think the point I was gonna make was that there's, I feel like, an orientation to more so space than people that Insight has, or like being, what I was reading, like a host, and kind of more with creating an environment and kind of knowing how to curate space in that way. So yeah, just curious around their tether to like environment making, or like shifting people in space, I don't know, or like just kind of like it just feels like they have the knowing of, in the grander scheme of the thing. I feel like that when y'all were playing with the place and the space making, kind of in a more literal sense, but from just saying like in the grander scheme of like a club, like they're literally the hosts, so like what that host vibe is too, from what I'm understanding, from what I was reading, understanding, how they're holding space in that way.
I appreciate you saying that, because like I think something that I want to revisit with that place holding, space holding thing is more like shaping the space. And that's something that I'm personally I don't have an affinity for. And so that's stretching me a lot as a mover. I'm much more into like, okay, like how am I moving around the space that I just created, versus let me create the space here, shift it here, boom, bop. It's a lot more like limmy and like handy and placing. I think you said like Tetris before. So yeah, I appreciate you saying that, because it gives me like the challenge of what I would like to, how I would like to approach that place hold, space hold vibe again. Did you learn anything about yourself and being in conversation with insight?
I think insight. I think just how there's different like precision and clarity that insight holds. That's not a space that I usually feel an affinity towards, I think. And so I think because I'm already, and I think movement wise, it's not necessarily a space I have I have an affinity towards, but in a cerebral place, it's a very comfortable place. And so I think I can get caught up in the fractals. And so there's a lot happening internally. I feel like it's a lot louder internally than how it manifests in the sustain or the sustain, like the clarity and sticking with, whereas my insides are kind of like and so
is that something that like you're enjoying and wanting more, or no?
I think both. And I think, I mean, today it felt like it was a different place to be in. I think I had mentioned like just there was an uncomfortability because I don't normally move in this way.
We were moving with a lot, just getting context. We were just moving with a lot more, like, as Roobi said, like isolation and animation. There's a lot of imagery around like galactic spaceship breaking apart and like the dynamic of that breaking and moving through the machine, moving through space, being warped through black hole vibes, things like that. So
releves, balance, you didn't mention that.
Oh, that too.
All on the left side, my God. But
we kind of fit in each other with that, because the other side's not my strong side, and that's your strong side. You like balancing on your right leg. I like balancing on my left.
I can tell. I like we got left again.
We complement each other, so I gotta make sure to challenge myself and get on the other leg.
And so I think that the more methodical way of moving, because it's not necessarily a flow. There's like, I think there's interruptions, or there's like your texture shifts that you're so brilliant at it, like, and so ultimately, yes, there is a flow, but from how I perceive a flow, it's not like, because like, there's moments where it's like, this could be tight, like a Tai Chi kind of vibe, and that's dope, but then it forces
glitches.
It glitches. And so
it's like more like a typewriter type of flow, like
So I think in the learning of it, like the first day for me, I was like, this is just hard for me because it's hard to ride it, or it's hard. And I think I was working with like, okay, get the movement, and also try to, internalize like what is the feeling, what are you, moving through, what is insight, like what is the emotional thing. And so I think trying to insight was just giving me insight on how we learn. And more insight on how you work too. Yeah.
For sure. I think besides what I already said, I feel like in this process, insight reminded me about how impatient I can be, and how to take a moment to like what is that about, like how selfish that is, and reminding me about practices both internally and behaviorally that I can do to quiet down that impatience. There, like, even like we started the rehearsal with a juggling exercise, and my shadow side, one of my shadow thoughts that, or I'm not going to call it mine anymore, one of the shadow thoughts that exists through me is like, why can't you get it, type of thing. And I'm like, and I feel my like chest tighten up, and like things are only fun when we're flowing. And it's like, no, the fun is figuring it out and messing up with you, you know? And so I felt that in that moment, and what I had to do was give it a moment and be like, okay, I hear what you're saying. I remember you. I know you. And I don't need you right now. You're not helpful to what we're working to build. Which was a camaraderie, a fun about the creative process that we were about to embark on, or that we just started on. Collaboration and egalitarianism. And so meeting it in the juggling was, I think, really, really beautiful, because anytime it re-sparked throughout our process, I was like, all right, like we've been here, and like I'm gonna keep hugging her, I'm gonna keep kissing her, I'm gonna keep swinging her around, because like those are the things I need to get out of that, and like quiet that side of me, that side that lives through me, down, because it's unnecessary. So yeah, that's what insight mostly helped me with today. What?
You were hugging me a lot.
It wasn't always from that place. It wasn't always from that place. You hug me like every other minute. I ain't never got so many hugs from you, boy.
I'm trying.
You're doing great. You're doing great. It was my fault that I wasn't recognizing, or that side of me wasn't recognizing that in the moment. But another side of me was like, I do recognize that, and here's how I'm going to work so that we foreground that recognition. So I think it's a beautiful thing to be able to like really engage with my shadow sides, my light sides, in the midst of creating this.
For sure.
Since it really is all about light and darkness. the kingdom and the dragons.
Yeah, that fun in the flow really hit me.
Say it again.
Is you saying it's not fun unless we're flowing? Yeah, I feel that too.
Yeah.
That's something and I think that's what, like, the intricacies of what we were moving through. I was like, it's hard to flow or ride it, like, and so I was yeah, and so I can, just get so in my head and or just in the focus of it. And so, not that that's not fun, and so I think honoring that as well. Like, it's like, I'm just trying, and trying to do my thing. But can also, like, just feel the judgment come if I'm not finding flow.
Yeah.
But the piecing together is what's supposed to be fun.
Right.
And so really, finding that.
I appreciate you bringing that back, because that kind of connected, but it connected further hearing you again, because it's like that typewriter aesthetic. It's like, it actually is a beautiful manifestation of what most of the creative process to me looks like and feels like. Like, versus like and I feel like that's a big difference between what I have felt from like creating for a phrase for hip hop class or a house. Like, it does feel like like I get in that groove, but like when I'm really trying to listen to the nuances of our imaginations and a character, they're not they're not just always in that flow. They have the complications of our humanity, which has a lot of different things, and sometimes that does get into a flow, but for me most times it does not. And like the getting into the flow is the victory. Like, it's the it's the flying through the clouds and landing on the other side on a rainy day, but a sunny day above. Like, wow. And like, I think that's a part of like why I get emotional too. Like, when I got emotional, because it's like, oh, there it is. Like, wow. Like, I'm like, boom. That was, for me, that was the blasting above the clouds and seeing the sun and the clear day and clear sky. Cause like, insight. Wow. Hey, it's good to see you. But like, we were moving through all of the unflow in order for us to get out the way and the character to arise. So. Good talk.